So we'll go ahead and get started for our June DAP. This meeting is being recorded. I don't think we have any community members signed up to talk today. But before we get started, I just wanted to announce in the saddest way that Rod's tenure is going to be coming to a close in September. He was on since 2017, our last remaining original member, and he is a representative of the Bethesda community. So we are going to be sending out requests for nominations shortly. However, if you know somebody that lives in Bethesda that has a professional background and is interested, please send them my way. And I don't want September to come around.
I presume that means the end of the DAP?
What's that?
I presume that with Rod gone, the end of the DAP?
No. The original members, yeah. Okay, so.
Hey, Grace,
Yes.
just, Rod knows this. There's a condition upon my being able to join the DAP. Rod was going to sign up for 3 more years. I'm not sure what happened there.
I would love to.
I think they're term limits, though, right?
You are term limited, but you could take a year break, and then if an open position happens again, you could reapply.
Okay, cool. Cool. We'll keep that in mind.
Yeah, unless the council puts a ballot initiative on for, the new cumulative things.
Okay, so our item today is 7749 Old Georgetown Road. This came before the DAP last year, I guess last summer for sketch plan. And this is the first presentation for the site plan level. We sent out a memo regarding the submission. We think that it has come a long way since sketch plan and has, refined very well. The applicant is requesting a change from, I think, the general massing that was shown at sketch plan for the tower setback. The design guidelines recommend a 22.5-foot setback, and the applicant is proposing to sort of do an average setback of between 18 feet and 22 feet with this undulating pattern that's reflective of the other facades in the building. So I think that's one of the major changes here, but I'll go ahead and turn it over to the applicant for presentation.
Okay, thank you. No, that's perfect. It's a great segue. My name is Dave Cerniglio. I was here last year as well. We were in the summer, I think June timeframe, when we met that first. We've come a long way since then. Certainly put a lot of thought and architecture into the massing that we had. Today with us, we've got Chris Huffer here with SK&I, Steve Sattler here with Mark Rodriguez, and I believe Matt Gordon is on the line as well from Salter Gervich. So that's our team today. Any kind of related questions, landscape wise or whatnot, architecture obviously we can handle. So that's the team that we have today. Just to remind everyone, since we've got a couple new members on the DAP here, we have the site at St. Elmo in Old Georgetown Road, also at the intersection of Arlington and Wilson. It's quite an interesting intersection that Chris will get into shortly. And we've assembled a site here with the Brown family and Lincoln family, along with the property that we purchased a couple years back, the old jewelry exchange, which is now a fencing studio. So we look to take the combined effort of close to about 25,000 square feet, which is a very, very small little site to be able to work with, and Chris will get into that as we move forward to see why we've done what we've done. Again, we've met with the community recently, the last couple of weeks. No opposition there. Everybody liked the direction we were heading. And then, like we were talking about earlier, there's a couple main things we've done other than the setback that we'll describe in a little bit. We did add a little bit more retail at the base by moving some of the amenity package upstairs up to the roof level, which helps activate the street, helps activate the base and the project. And then obviously the majority of what we've done is taking the massing that we all had at sketch plan, the orange models that we've seen, and we've thrown some really spectacular architecture to it, and we're very excited about the ability to take that massing and the views that we have to the south and west, again with that massing, and turn it into architecture. We think SK and I have done a really nice job presenting with the vision of what this project can turn into. So we're excited about showing to you all today. So with that, we'll turn it over to Chris for the presentation.
All right, thanks, Dave. Good morning, everyone. As Dave mentioned, my name is Chris Huffer with SK&I Architecture. So the overall table of contents for today, we'll go over the site, go over the architecture, go through how you're, applying, the design guidelines to the architecture, and then we'll open it up for questions. So as Dave mentioned, and as everybody is aware, we are at that 5-way intersection of Old Georgetown Road, Wilson Lane, Arlington Road, and St. Elmo here in essentially the center of the Woodmont Triangle District here. Just kind of zooming in, highlighting, a little bit closer, we have the under construction building right here to the north of us, with 2 other recent buildings on the north and on the south at Fairmount Avenue. We have the public parking garage right across the street from here that's highlighted in pink, and us right in the middle, kind of at the site of the old Georgetown Grill location, soon to be old location. So just a few site photos, kind of going around from left to right here. This is a view from Wilson Lane. At the top here, a view at that intersection, looking at the old Georgetown Grill, right next to the Eagle Bank building. Then right here on the top right, we have the old jewelry exchange, now fencing studio. So our site extends from the street all the way up to the Eagle Bank building. And then on the lower images coming up St. Elmo Avenue. So, extend the old Georgetown Grill up past here, and our site is terminating essentially right here at the white truck here.
Yeah, right up against the House of Malay.
Yep, the House of Malay. So, our overall design goals is obviously to achieve the goals of the Bethesda plan and provide a dynamic, sustainable, and inclusive address through, these design guideline items. The goal is to create that signature residential tower that's scaled, approachable, engages, and enhances the pedestrian experience, and becomes an iconic moment when entering downtown Bethesda from the north and west. As I think Dave mentioned, and as you saw in the plan, this does really act as a gateway site for us coming from Wilson Lane and Old Georgetown into Bethesda from the north and the northwest. So it's very important to us as we go through the design that we kind of focused a lot of energy at that corner intersection, and also at the elevation that fronts kind of the north and Old Georgetown Road here. So going through some elevations, our goal here was, I think when we last saw the massing model, and as Dave mentioned, we have a very tight site, and there's a lot of requirements or recommendations on the design guidelines for setbacks and building massing, and we're trying to utilize this site and the architecture to kind of identify with those setbacks and achieve the goals of the plan, but also create some dynamic architecture. So we looked at creating this interwoven chevron design that extends all the way from the base to the top, that interweaves with itself and sets back at areas where we can provide a base, middle, top proportion of the building, while also achieving an engaging corner as well with the penthouse. As I'm sure a lot of you are aware, Bethesda has a lot of good examples of some Art Deco buildings, especially at kind of gateway entrances into the site. So we kind of took that as some of our precedent and wanted to put kind of our modern flair to it with the chevron design. So you can see we're really trying to stress these vertical elements, and as they kind of peel through the architecture.
Hey, Chris, this is just John Schroeder. Can I ask one quick favor? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Hey, Grace, I got the link again, but I can't seem to connect. So I apologize. But Chris, if you could, from time to time, just tell me what page number you're on, and I can follow you here on my computer.
Okay. So we are on page 005. It is the view looking south on Old Georgetown Road. So, within that, we have a couple, buildings around us that are darker nature, more, creamish nature. And, a lot of them are more, the traditional buildings and materials, and, a lot of brick and masonry around us. So, with the idea that we are, this gateway site, we wanted to kind of utilize some materiality to do that. So we're looking at using a lot of metal panel, but using kind of varying shades. So we have all this undulation, and we're looking to use a combination of 3 tone-on-tone colors that will enhance kind of the shape of the building as it goes around and the light hits it. So you can really understand and visualize that interweaving of the architecture here. So as mentioned, I'm going to go around the building and then we can go through the design guidelines and then which focus on a few of these specific things, obviously, and then so this is a view from Old Georgetown Road. I mean, from Wilson Lane, I'm sorry.
Every time you flip the page, why don't you let them know you?
Yep.
So,
Next page.
there you go.
This is a view from Wilson Lane. And as Grace mentioned, this is where we kind of start seeing a couple of the tweaks that we made from sketch plan. And one of it was, at sketch plan, our massing concept was, hey, we're going to focus this plane, this mass on the corner and on St. Elmo. And then we're going to set back and kind of change the materiality and kind of have a slightly different architecture at the time. At the time, it was just, colored boxes. But as we started to get into that, looking at it and looking at it 3-dimensionally, we decided that, it made sense, yes, to change color, but also to integrate more of that overall chevron design, because from this view and also from looking south, you want something that interweaves and creates that unified, building around the whole thing. So, we have kind of changed one of the colors here. So I think that this is a good example of, we have a lighter color at the corner that really reflects the sun. And then, we have a medium color that kind of starts wrapping around the back, and then a darker color that kind of interweaves with the base. So they all kind of peel. But what this does is on the side here, we've taken that chevron design, integrated it here, and then it wraps around to the back side, which we'll see and talk about the building setbacks there as well. Oh, also, as Dave mentioned, we are extending, the retail frontage to be the entire frontage of Old Georgetown. Kind of extends back about 56 feet at the corner, and then it extends all the way to the Eagle Bank building. So really opening up that ground plane as well. This is a view kind of from next page. Next page. A view from the park across the street. So you see, currently we have the 10-story Eagle Bank building. And I apologize to not remind everybody, we are 17 stories, 175 feet, roughly 270 units is what we're proposing with that 6,000 square feet of retail. But you can see here, so we start, popping up over that building, but, the corner here, the element is, still projects out, still holds the corner coming from the south. And a view here kind of looking, next page. Thanks, Doug. You can see how we've started to bring this architecture around to the side and creating more of a subtle integrated chevron on the back. So the proportion is a little bit bigger, a little bit softer. Obviously, we have our A and B facades, which we want to focus on, but we have this language that unifies the whole building with itself. And with that, we have the creation of additional kind of setbacks at the top to kind of create a better proportion on that facade as well. Next page. This is a view looking from St. Elmo back towards the intersection at Old Georgetown Road. So I think, one thing that's unique about this architecture is with the interweaving, it really helps break down the length of the facade, kind of limiting the visual apparent face of the building. So you can kind of see these elements coming down here that interweave with the base and eventually kind of connect at the ground here that are, broken up by those recessed balconies and those other setbacks, but also with the base here. So it kind of, you get these 4 or 5 marching elements that kind of staccato the facade, but also helps break it down into, smaller pieces. Next page. A little bit closer up view from St. Elmo looking back here at the middle section of the base. So this is behind this tree where our entrance lobby is located for the residential building. But here you can really see that these pieces with the base, coming down and interacting with the ground. I think that was one of our main changes we had between our sketch plan, first presentation to you all, and when we came back to present was how do we interact, the base and the podium with the building and kind of create that unified building top to bottom. So, here you can see those elements are grounded all the way to the ground, and how they're interconnected with that piece going up for the middle. Next page. It's a view at the corner, looking at the corner of the retail here. So I think, what we mentioned, the retail base is 18 feet tall, about 15 feet of glass there. So it creates a pretty nice proportion for the base and kind of carries up through the building. But again, you can see kind of that interaction of the materiality of the recessed balconies, the projecting balconies above, and how that all ties together here. Next page. This is a view from Arlington Road across the street, so focusing on the old Georgetown elevation here. So now we have that wider expanse of retail at the base, but that's also anchored by these elements coming down as well. Next page. So kind of just quickly go through the design guidelines because it's more technical. But building obviously is set on Old Georgetown Road. St. Elmo, Old Georgetown Road is considered an urban boulevard with a recommended build to line or build to line setback of 25 feet. That's broken up into 3 areas: the frontage zone, the pedestrian, and planting. We're providing 8 feet, 10 feet, and 7 feet, all within the recommended sidewalk zone depths here. The building form, there's a setback 3 to 6 stories. So we're providing that kind of peel, that 6-story podium here. And then we start peeling that, the building back here. So where we're recessed at these balconies, and we'll get into that later, is we have about a 10-foot setback there. It peels back to about a 5-foot setback. And then obviously we bring the building back off of our neighbors there to provide more light and air. Next page. St. Elmo is a downtown street. The recommended build to line is 15 to 20 feet. We're providing 15 feet, 7-foot planting zone, and 8-foot pedestrian zone here, consistent with the guidelines as well. And again, we'll get into the setbacks, but we're providing a base at six stories, and then providing varying depths of setback above that with that integrated chevron as we go. Next page. St. Elmo is also designated a canopy corridor. This was discussed at staff and the original sketch plan on because of the nature of the build to line on St. Elmo only being 15 feet. That's not, even the recommended width here is not conducive to having 2 sets of trees. And with the adjacent, newer developments just north of the site, they also are providing a second row of trees. So, our goal was to kind of be consistent with the whole streetscape, but look for ways to provide additional measures of planting. Steve, if you want to jump in and mention anything.
So one of the changes we have implemented here from the original sketch plan submission is to increase the amount of planting on the street by kind of joining the tree pits in pairs. So we can get some lower level planting that's, kind of at eye level, have some, a little bit of separation from the street and add to that kind of visual appeal and buffer to the sidewalk. There's also, we do have some benches and street lights and all the accompanying street furniture through that zone. And then against the building, we're proposing to introduce some planters, some large planters that would not encroach into the through zone, but provide some additional greenery at that ground level and softening to the building entrance and the retail along that facade, including a few planters even at the garage entrance that kind of help to soften that very kind of hardscape zone. We contemplated putting some lower level greenery at the island between them. However, we don't feel that's going to survive the traffic. Those things often get run over, even though there are curbs there. Sloppy movements tend to really cause damage in there. So we wanted to avoid that future issue by, just kind of providing some additional green near the building.
And yeah, I'll just add one more thing here. So I mentioned, we're providing 15 feet. The recommended setback is between 15 and 20 feet. So right where these little chevrons connect to the ground at that highest point, that is where we have our 15 feet. So then for the majority of this facade, we are also setting back another 2.5 feet to kind of help accommodate for, that extra room, extra planting as well. Next page. So green cover, I think, obviously we are required to have the 35% green cover, which we are achieving through use of green roofs at the various terrace levels and setback levels that you saw in the 3 mentions, but also, providing additional green roof at the top of the penthouse and in the mechanical areas here. Next page. Service loading and parking. I think, we started this, we discussed with staff, best and really only location for the garage and loading entrance is at the far north end of our site. And we've kind of combined that as, close as we can, while also providing a 10-foot space in between the garage and loading for pedestrian safety here, but pushing it as far back away from the intersection as possible and integrating it into the base design as well. So I think it does a good job of integrating with the base and hiding itself so it's not a visual eyesore of the building. Again, just highlighting the building placement, they're meeting the recommended build to lines of 15 feet to 25 feet. And as I mentioned on St. Elmo, we're providing areas that go up to about 17.5 feet as well. The base street activation. So both these elevations, we are providing several areas of recessed Juliet balconies and full recessed balconies, as well as providing these plane changes with the chevrons on the base and those color changes within that as well. And how those plane changes interact with the base, so it kind of doesn't create any staccato lines across the building. So we have this visual interaction for those first 6 stories. And as I mentioned, we have about 18-foot first story that is providing 6,000 square feet of retail and our main lobby and amenity entrance. So having that transparency and activation provide a very friendly pedestrian experience. Next slide. This is the base variation and articulation, and as I've harped on again, obviously we are working to integrate and vary kind of architecture within base, middle, top here and how it all connects. So just a quick little visual representation of that blue. That's the piece that comes into the base. That is a darker material that comes to the ground and how that interacts with this yellow line as it comes all the way up to the base. So we have that interlocking architecture that breaks up the facade and creates that variation at the base. Next slide. Corner treatments. We strove to create a distinctive but simple and elegant corner feature that integrates with the architecture and integrates with the penthouse. Providing a visual cue to the rest of the building. We have this butterfly chevron at the corner that then comes down and interacts all the way down to the base and opens up at the retail. To really emphasize that element, we've used that architecture around to the side, creating that gap with the recessed balconies and then the change of color with that other architecture as it goes around the building. So it really helps that with also the vertical nature of our modern Art Deco feel really helps accentuate the corner and expresses the height as an important element, an important gateway to Bethesda. Next slide. All right, so this is the kind of what we're proposing for the tower separation. As Grace and Dave mentioned, we are on a very kind of constrained site, especially with all the recommended setbacks on St. Elmo, Old Georgetown. It stresses on the building and stresses on the units, but also trying to create a unified architecture for the building. So I think the recommended minimum separation is 22.5 feet, which we are providing at several areas throughout the building. It's important to us to kind of have as wide as we can on Old Georgetown Road. Obviously, that's kind of our south-facing facade, but as we open up there, we believe that creating the articulation of the facade also helps angle the skin for the residents in these areas to kind of get a better visual cue to this gap between the buildings. So it kind of provides a good almost half of this facade now with a better perspective, better access to that light and air at the south portion of the site between our buildings instead of just having a flat facade here. So as Grace mentioned, we're kind of going through and averaging where the tightest we get is 18 feet, and then we chevron between that and the 22 and a half feet setback there. Tower step back, using that chevron, we're stepping back in these blue areas 8 feet, and as we go up, we create another 5-foot setback in the yellow area. So it's really kind of helping create those setbacks on the way up and creates that base middle top reading and proportion. And I think this is for the design for the site and for the setbacks, and as well as for the the tower separation. There's recommendations in the design guidelines to utilize all of these ways to reduce bulk for tight and constrained sites, which we have. Obviously, I've already harped on a lot of these things, but we are using angled facades, varying tower heights, limiting the apparent phase with the chevron, and utilizing unique geometry and just a varied and unique architecture throughout this whole building that I think meets a lot of not just one element of these from the menu, but multiple. Next slide, tower top. As I mentioned previously with the corner, our goal was to create and integrate the penthouse and the tower with the rest of the building. So instead of just creating that datum line and setting back and creating a mechanical tower, we wanted to kind of integrate all those spaces together. So while we do set back, there are still visual elements that connect to the base middle top of the main core of the building that kind of really emphasize and create that unified building. Next slide, bird safe design. I think there's a lot of items here that address the needs for bird safe design with the varying angles and plane changes, material changes, integration of the balconies recessed and that create a lot of different shadows and shadow lines and reflections. So it's not just a flat glass building, which I think meets a lot of the facade treatments recommended for bird safe design. Just highlighting quickly through the plans, we are proposing up to 3 levels of underground parking. Going to the first floor, this is our updated ground floor where we've extended that retail as we mentioned here. You can also see, I should have harped on this a little bit more, but our 25-foot setback is to this closest point. And coming to the corner, it is a big corner, it is constrained, it is a big building. We pulled back that retail into this area to kind of create a nicer pedestrian experience here at the corner. So we are providing, an excess of an extra 5 feet of setback at this corner on the ground plane as well. So then moving up, obviously the retail wraps the corner, and then we have our, lobby and amenity space that is anchoring the center of the building. And here you can see the garage entry going through there. So next page, just kind of highlighting the typical floors quickly. So everybody kind of gets an idea of how these chevrons work and seeing that articulation in the plan. So left is that base plan. On the right is the middle plan where you can see here where those setbacks are created and integrated with those larger balconies here as well. Then on those other setbacks from the Eagle Bank building and on the corner here at the north, that's where we'll be providing green roof and fire retention. Going up on the left is the top 2 floors, further recessing and peeling back the architecture. And on the right, we have our penthouse space. So as Dan mentioned, we're putting a good amount of our amenity space on the penthouse as well to create that active and take advantage of the views here. highlighting the overall size of the building, 175 feet within the recommendations of comp plan. And you can see here that integration, the retail, lobby amenity, and the parking site. Some elevation. So I'll stop there. Sami or Dave or Doug, would you like to add anything here?
I don't think so. Yeah, let's open it up to the DAP. Let's have a good dialogue.
I'll go first. This is Rod. So I've tracked this project for a while. I've obviously been in all the presentations. And I think the designs come along really nicely. I do have comments, though. First off, I think I want to apologize for not being there in person because take a look at models because I love seeing the models. But now, having said that, to me, the St. Elmo Road elevation, massing, articulation is really highly disciplined, highly resolved. I like how the chevrons come down and intersect the base and the play of the base relative to the chevrons. But then as you go around to Old Georgetown Road and recognizing you're really trying to create a landmark on the corner, that kind of discipline seems to fall apart to me. Instead of a very disciplined elevation and rigorous elevation on St. Elmo, it seems very random on Old Georgetown. And I'm wondering whether you could make it both disciplined, sophisticated, and very simple by trying to resolve some of the geometry relative particularly to the gray box that's on the right-hand side in this.
So I mean, I think the geometry is actually the same between this chevron here on the side, of St. Elmo and brought over here in terms of the angles. So I think there is a lot of tying together between that. We have tweaked the top a little bit to anchor the corner.
Yeah, do me a favor, put up one of your floor plans out. Now, if you look at the floor plans, both from the 2nd to the 6th and the 7th through the 15th, there is a great repetition that goes along St. Elmo, but then it just seems very random and unresolved as you go around to Old Georgetown. And it appears both in the images that I look at, but it really is very apparent in the plan. And I guess what I'm suggesting is maybe some more simplification, particularly on the right-hand side, would help and improve the composition of the building.
Yeah, I think Chris. Oh, go ahead, Yulia.
No, when you look at that image, I think page 6, that was right in the corner. Maybe, Rod, what you're talking about is when you don't see that 6-foot base carried across to Old Georgetown Road, other than that little piece where the setback is, because the 3 metal panels that are tone on tone, and I appreciate that it's not enough contrast to pick up on that rhythm from San Elmo to Old Georgetown Road. I think that's the issue.
Yeah, good point.
Ed. There's another view here.
Yeah.
Right there. Yeah, right there.
Mm-hmm. So maybe it's just something that you can do with color, or how at the top of the building on this facade on page 8, you have this, you break the rule right at the very top. You have a setback and you have an individual longer balcony. Maybe you could do something like that at the point of that 6th story that will visually tie the 6-story base from San Elmo to Old Georgetown. If it's not possible with the tone-on-tone color of the metal panels, because that's not much contrast there. It's an idea.
No, I mean, I think, you know, you're right. As one of the good points is, it is a short facade, and a portion of it is strained because of the tightness of the site. So trying to integrate that and create a well-proportioned tower, put some strain on having multiple repetitive items. But I think, maybe there is a way, like you said, maybe to add a little bit more strength and color to something that you can see a little bit more of, maybe from that, from this corner to this corner. So we're on page 12, everybody, but I mean, I think when you look at the plan, you do see the repetitive, because the base itself, this profile is exactly the same as over here. So I think there is that repetitive nature of it. But I do think, it's a short facade and a tough proportion. So
Yeah, I think I've used this before, but there's an old saying, how many people does it take to do a watercolor? It's actually two, one to do it and one to tell you when to stop. And I think in a way, it's kind of a little editing, it's some editing that needs to happen to strengthen the design.
Okay.
The tough side is very narrow. So yeah, there's a lot of thinking I see that has been involved and had to happen, right, to get to this point. So I applaud you for that. Couple of questions. Are you taking the metal panel material all the way to the base where on San Elmo, where there's a load-in fire control room exit from the load-in dock? Because it looks like in renderings it's metal panel. So my issue with that is that, go ahead.
So at the base here, this metal panel will come down, but it'll sit on a granite base at about a foot high. So it's not coming all the way down to the ground. And then within this area, we're looking at using either a combination of a harder material, a masonry, or something in that realm for that area. But we want it to match the same color scheme of everything, so it kind of blends in. But yeah, we are looking at using those and stopping that from sitting directly on the ground.
Yeah, my issue was that I see some material was banged up, especially in the loaded entries. So that banged up facade has remained there for quite a few months until the repairs had to happen, and that's because the material was too brittle. Obviously, metal panel has to work, but if you do 8 gauge, it has to be higher. So I'm glad to hear it's granite, and probably some refinement needs to happen in terms of showing reveals, right, at that portion of the facade. So it's not just like a door and a flat surface of the metal panel, right? Are you preserving the existing trees, or are they all going to be new?
So yeah, the trees are all new.
Oh, okay. In terms of setbacks, I don't have any issues being less than 22 and a half, and you have 18 feet next to the Eagle Bank building, right? I guess if you can make it work with a fire separation distance in terms of percentage of window and door openings on that facade, that's great. I don't have any issues there, so.
Yeah, any separation past 15 feet, we're allowed to do up to 75% glazing in those areas, which we are not even close to, really. So, fine.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, volumetrically, it looks very dynamic. I think these were my same comments from before when you guys were in sketch plan. I was very excited to see, the next iteration of the facade, which is now. So it looks great to me. I think Rod's comments are valid about that base wrapping around, maybe just a few tweaks there. Anything else? I mean, I can't think of. I
This
appreciate that
is-
you guys brought that column at the corner to support the tower, so it's not floating in space. And actually, there are two columns, right? But the column
Yeah,
at the
there's two,
corner, I think that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Hey, this is John Chitter. I have a couple of comments and questions. This is my first time seeing the plan, given that I'm new to the DAP, and it looks like a really, really strong design, thought process, and execution thereof so far on a really important corner. A couple questions relative to the ground plane. I'm looking at page 29. Steve or someone, the dimensions from the face of curb to the face of building. What is the dimension at that location?
So from the face of curb on St. Elmo to the very closest point, it's 15 feet. But then there's so at those little triangles at the closest point there, and then it further recesses about 2.5 feet to where, the plane flattens out. So
Right.
between 15 and 17.5 feet on St. Elmo. And then on Old Georgetown, if you look at the area directly adjacent to our neighbor on the right, that close part, that's 25 feet face of curb to the building there, and then it further sets back at the
Right.
corner another 5 feet to about 30 feet here.
So let me ask a function before form question. If I have 270 units, that front entry is going to be really busy from a pedestrian user standpoint, not to mention all the deliveries that are going to be received by this building. And I guess if I had a concern about St. Elmo Avenue, and I'm not always a fan of pull-offs, and I don't know if you guys looked at pull-offs, but that is a busy street right now as it is, coming off of the intersection of Old Georgetown and Arlington. And would there be, or did you guys study the idea of just doing a drop off? Because where's Amazon going to park when they stop at that building 12 times, 15, 20 times a day? I'm concerned that might be a problem for St. Elmo. And if you go to page 12 of the perspective, you could just, if you insert a gray-blue Amazon truck there, St. Elmo's is going to be tight and people are going to be forced to go over into the other lane. So all these words are leading around. Is there an ability, or did you look at doing a small pull-off for residents as well as short-term delivery?
I think,
I think that's an issue for public versus the private.
Yeah, John, if I recall, I think that St. Elmo actually calls for bike lanes on the southern side, so that sort of introduces a conflict point. I don't think that would be, even if the applicant were to propose it, I don't think there would be support from DOT or transportation staff.
It's less us, John. It's less
Yeah.
us, John, than the public side. It's Doug. The bikers win everywhere. Let's
Yeah.
Make sure we all accept that fact at the beginning point of the conversation. But we'd be happy to do it, but doing it around a bike lane, we've did it once, kind of at Avocet. It's challenging at best. So that's the issue.
So could just knowing that the bike lane is going to take some precedent here, would the bike lane be considered to move it to, if south is to the right, is that what I'm hearing, and north to the left? Could you move the bike lane to the north side of St. Elmo Avenue along the public parking garage? And
I
what's
am
soon to
mostly
be
confident. Is there a bike lane on either side, or I think it's supposed to be on the south side.
it's supposed to be on the side.
I don't think we're going to get out of that, John. Yeah, I don't think that.
okay? Yeah, again, I think the realities of a fully functioning, busy 270 unit building with all the today's deliveries at that St. Elmo is going to be a really busy street. I just thought that and maybe there's a way to still get the bike lane in there with a pull off, be it a 6 or 7 foot width pull off. And then I'd go back into the trees. You could probably still get 4 trees in there. And then Steve, let me ask you a question. Is there tree species and size of tree you guys are looking at this point?
Yeah, that's defined by the guidelines. So these are Bosque elm on St. Elmo.
Mm-hmm. And then on Old Georgetown, the single tree, what's that?
That is swamp white oak.
Swamp white oak. All right. Is there a reason why there isn't a second tree on St. Elmo?
So with the tight site we have here, the transformer vaults are placed kind of flanking that that tree, and then we have a bus vault that's in the sidewalk area that's fully covered. So we're keeping the graded vaults out of the pedestrian through zone. And then we have we've got a really large existing curb ramp there that we're accommodating for that crossing. And then, this Chris is guiding me here. The street lights,
Page 29.
facing, we're trying to kind of puzzle all these things together.
Right. And then on the trees themselves, just out of curiosity, is there a size caliper you guys are going to specify? Are you going to do the kind of classic 4 or 4.5 inch caliber? Are you guys going to go for a little bit bigger tree going in initially just to get that immediate visual benefit?
I mean, let's see, 4.5. I mean, we could look at just a tad bigger than that, just to get some immediate pop, without going crazy.
Yeah, the difficulty always is the fitting the root ball into the tree
Right.
strips.
But I think, and I appreciate that exactly, and I think you have, given that you've made it bigger, I think you probably have enough to get the root ball in there for a 6 or 7 inch caliper type tree. And I think you're going to benefit as a developer in the group here, if I can speak on that behalf. I think having that immediate impact is going to help your retail, it's going to help your sidewalk scene, it's going to help your resident experience. And then the last comment on this thing, I'm not going to let it die just yet. It is going to be, bicycles are important. Deliveries are important. It's going to be very busy on St. Elmo Avenue. And I'm not sure if there isn't more thought needs to go into that kind of functionality of the residential building relative to the sidewalk to the street and delivery requirements. I mean, where does Amazon, simple, last thing, where does Amazon park its truck for the 3 or 4 minutes that's there dropping it off? It's going to be right on St. Elmo. And they're going to either, in fact, they have a plant bed in front of the front door. Now, if there's going to be another door, maybe Dave, is there another door that the service guys are going to be going in out of?
Yeah, they'll likely be using that front door, because they know where it is.
Right, and so they're going to park in front of that landscape bed. They're going to walk right through it, unless you guys, put some Berberis in there or something that keeps them out of it. It's going to be a very, very busy sidewalk scene.
Well, we do have a second door that goes into the loading dock, which turns into a service corridor, which is likely where
Which is where we'd like them to go.
where we'd like them to go, because the package room is going to be back there. So
My experience is where we like them to go and we tell them to go have nothing to do.
correct.
But your point about trying to protect that little landscape island, we should try to make it unbearable for them to get through.
Yeah.
Do they have to
Good point.
have 2 left turn lanes coming down?
Okay.
If they get rid of one of those left turn lanes, you have a width there on the right side, but traffic going north.
Got the room.
Possibly have more breathing room, at least, to be able to put a truck there every now and then.
I agree with you.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, this is
Is there
not.
that much traffic coming down?
No, I'm here all the time. The way it's set up is the way that. Have you ever met Emil?
I met DOT and I bang heads with them every single day.
As we do.
But I think that, it might be something to just ask at least.
Well, the one thing we could ask is whether they taper it soon. Because when you get all the bikes in this, as opposed to a pull-off, if the stacking doesn't go as far as if we could start a taper sooner, it will then create, maybe, that's painting.
Yeah, I think what I recall
And
from.
maybe they let us try it. If it doesn't
Right.
work, we can always unpaint it.
Yeah, I think what I call from the sketch plan was that we were going to look at the street design at preliminary. So like maybe we can revisit the conversation.
Yeah.
I mean, it's worth the conversation.
Agreed.
Because
Hey,
it will,
when
it will correct.
When the The retail looks really pretty solid, in my opinion. If there's a restaurant or two, is there an outdoor cafe space that's been considered? I'm assuming it's along the old Georgetown Road, because I think at St. Elmo, you won't have the dimension.
We're trying to reserve the few extra 5 feet. We can't go into the other setback area.
Correct, yeah.
John, we're reserving the few extra feet we set back, but this isn't an area where you can go into the 15 feet for private use, is my recollection.
Well,
Am I right about that?
I think there's,
Can we get 5 feet?
For
Like
like-
on the southern, I call it the southern.
on Old Georgetown, I think there's probably space where you could do tables, and I think that would probably be in line with what we want in the frontage area of the building.
I mean,
And that's
if
your
we could look
property,
to
so.
Create a 5-foot
Yeah.
meeting zone, that would
That'd be
be terrific.
helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, the prominent nature of the corner architecture and space is the ground plane is equally as important as the top of the building. So I think if that could happen, that would be great to have the ability to do outdoor cafe. Who knows? It may not be a restaurant. It may be some other type of retail or commercial use. But anyways,
Good point, John. Thank you.
I have it. Go ahead, John. Did you want to go?
If you don't mind, I maybe we can go a little bit over time so that both of us have a chance to make some comments. In general terms, by the way, it's a really handsome, clever building, and all praise to SK&I. Lovely job. I want to talk a little bit about a different aspect of the streetscape. Steve, what's the width of the step out?
Step out
outside.
on St. Elmo.
On St. Elmo, yeah. There is a
So
step out.
you're talking adjacent to the curb?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Since
there's a 1 foot.
longer.
Yeah.
Because people will have to walk on that in order to get around the planter, unless you're going to bridge. So I realize a foot may not be wide enough. I would give that some thought. Second, the planters at the base of the building. They're spotty. They're not large. And what makes you think that that building needs softening?
So I think we were responding to comments regarding getting additional green space, given that this is, or green, visual green, given that this is the canopy corridor. Part of the reason they're not large is because, you know, we're kind of constrained.
Oh, yes. So let's
streetscape.
not call them large. They are spotty. And I think that they are not enhancing, they're enhancing neither the streetscape nor the building.
So your preference would be just
take them out.
Your preference would be to remove.
I get rid of them.
Okay.
Another second, and this is actually a response to John Chitterer. The sidewalk in front of Bloomingdale's on 53rd Street in Manhattan is 8 feet. And people seem to use it just fine. This is not anything like as busy as 53rd Street in front of Bloomingdale's. I think we'll be okay without laybys and other kinds of accommodations like that. And the last thing, this is the corner amenity area at the top of the building covered or not?
It'll be,
Some renderings show it covered, and others do not.
the plan is, you know, we're still finalizing the details of it, is on. Showing.
No good.
5 and 6 show it uncovered.
Yeah, I mean, the plan is to have on this portion on the, I'm circling here on page 16.
But not coming to the edge.
Not coming to the edge, but just kind of like integrating a covered trellis for a third of this area here.
Good.
Yeah.
Next thing, then. Since it's not totally covered, it doesn't need to be supported by the ornamental tower extension. I think that's the one weak spot in this building. I don't think you need it. It looks gratuitous to me. And it doesn't help the experience of being on the rooftop as far as the amenity space is concerned. The extensions do block some of the views. I don't think it enhances the user experience, and I don't think it makes the building better looking. The whole building is so rigorous and rhythmic, as has been mentioned before. That extension, I think, it's a non sequitur. I don't get it, and I don't think it improves. I don't think it improves the building. I'd lose it if it were me. Excuse me. It's one of those
John,
things that people.
Are you finished?
Yeah.
I have a few comments. If there's time, Grace?
Yeah.
I also was not there at the initial presentations, so I don't feel I can comment on the basic principles that have already been reviewed. So I find the building a very ambitious geometric exercise. I'm a firm believer that certain regions within the city have a character that should be embraced and adopted. For me, the Woodmont Triangle District is a very masonry district. And I think these architects have chosen a kind of glass and steel Art Deco approach, which I do respect. But I think that decision's already been made and that ship has been sailed. I want to second the comments about the frontage and a little bit of clutter that I see also along Old Georgetown Road. And it's characteristic of the northwest side as well, where I think the balconies are cluttering the massing. So that's just a word to the architects. If you look in this view, if you look at the upper right image, eliminating the top balcony on the right corner, doing a larger setback on that right flank might be stronger visually. And the gap being filled with balconies also is a cluttering factor, as are the square rectangular balconies woven into the weave pattern that you have. Those balconies to me feel a little disruptive of the fluidity of the design otherwise. So those are comments that they're not deal breakers, but just observations. I do also think that the corner looks flimsy as is. I think you could either strengthen it at the very top, the extension, either strengthen it or eliminate it. Either would probably work. And I also found that the coloring is a little muddy, a little too, looks like there's 3 subtle color uses around the facade. And I think this building would look good in one color if the massing was stronger or greater contrast. Once you introduce angles into the building, there's a lot of things you'll need to resolve as architects, as you know well. But I do applaud the expressionistic, I'd call it an expressionistic architectural approach. I think it's very ambitious. So one last question about the skin to the architects. What system are you thinking this will be? Is this a unitized window wall system?
Yes.
Yeah,
Correct.
So it's very thin on the perimeter. The glass to metal is quite thin. It looks like a couple inches.
you get up to about 3 to 4 inches.
All right, so it's not a rain screen system.
Correct.
Okay. I think I'll stop there. The balconies, there's a lot of balconies. They're the toughest thing for architects to resolve. Their resolution in this case on this design is critical because there are so many of them. Their form and their finish are really quite important. And I also found the little French balconies that occur on the side lower flanks to be disruptive of the overall composition. So I'm not sure if those could be done more simply. And I'll hold my comments there. But I think, again, a very ambitious design.
This is John Schindler. I have an architectural question since I'm not an architect. The top, can someone, Chris, whomever, explain what the objective and goal is? I'm reading the words on page 25 and I'm looking at the images throughout, obviously. Help me understand how we got to that shape and why you think this is the most striking, stunning architectural solution.
The shape is, derived from the rest of the chevron, right? It's kind of a half chevron, or not half chevron, but it's the same angle, rotated, and then, simplified a little bit here because we don't have any peeling off of it. So we think, having that subtle butterfly chevron at the corner, integrates with the rest of, the angular moves we've made there. And I think, I think it's important to have a taller element at the corner, especially in this location, because it is kind of that gateway. And I think, with the expression of the verticality of the building, we're trying to take these vertical Art Deco piers up and then kind of peel them away a little bit to kind of emphasize the lightness of that architecture here. But I think with it then further integrating into the back portion of the penthouse, it provides that kind of anchor that's holding it, down the facade.
Chris, I think that's the right piece. Is it needs to be proud of the rest of the penthouse that's up there, and it is a very important amenity space, and the creation of that sense of space while you're up there, that outdoor room, if you will. And I think that integration of a trellis that we're going to do for a third of the space will also help the dynamic of creating that sense of amenity architecture up there, so that you understand it. Certainly you don't get that when you're down at street level, but at street level you will understand that piece, that tower element, is that icon to that gateway coming into Bethesda, but also it grounds the rest of the building as it moves back above the penthouse, so that the penthouse sort of sits in sort of next to kin to the larger element.
It's all helpful. Thank you.
Are there any other comments online? So the applicant is requesting 30 points. Is that right?
We'll take 29.
I heard some comments from the group about refining the old Georgetown facade and the base. Is this something that DAP feels comfortable voting on today, or would you rather the applicant take into consideration the comments from today and returning? This is site plan, so this would be your final opportunity.
So at 30 points, that's the highest award. I think there are
That
too
is the
many
highest.
yeah, I think there are too many comments here to kind of concur with those 30 points.
Mhm.
I agree.
Okay. So I have been taking down the notes and I will get these posted and can have you guys come back in either July or after the August break. Okay.
And I think from a timing standpoint, going through with intake and everything.
You should start the intake process. Yeah.
Yeah, and
then
I think we're ready to
time.
do that.
Yeah.
Certainly. Okay.
Great. Thank you all for your extra 6 minutes of today and stay cool.
Everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.